Indices in negative territory right now. The Dow's down 47. So, not a huge give back, not yet anyway, but it's down 45 right now. I'm sorry, 45. The S&P's down 3, so everything's in negative territory, even on the good news of the housing, the existing home sales. So everything is in negative territory. I think the big question is earnings. That's something, again, I'm going to talk about at the next hour. What this is going to do to earnings. Remember, one of the things that we have heard in this so-called recovery, if you can call it a recovery, one of the things that we've heard so many times is the recovery that is driven, it is earnings of companies. Okay. And one of the things that we've heard for the little bit of the pullback in the third quarter was the lack of earnings. Well, the way I see it, everything's pointing to lower earnings for the first 2 quarters of next year, according to companies. And I'm going to talk about that again next at the top of the next hour. But nevertheless, earnings could be an issue, but it seems as though and they're looking at Hewlett-Packard and a couple of stocks that got hit this morning as one of the reasons. Of course, the other thing that they cited as the headline that I didn't talk about, I kind of forgot to tell you the truth, but they were talking about one of the things that drove the markets yesterday was Apple. Apple had a huge day. You had some other companies like Tyson and others that had really big days, some individuals that kind of generated a bit of enthusiasm throughout all the sectors and, pulled the markets up. I don't know if that's true. I think that I go back to the original headline of what it was yesterday morning before the markets even opened, which was the fact that it looks as though a budget deal is going to be reached because not a budget deal. I'm sorry. What's a budget? We haven't had a budget in 4 years. Anyway, it looks like a deal is going to be reached on the fiscal cliff. And that was the enthusiasm because of something that the president said in Bangkok on Sunday that everybody was excited. And because Boehner has come out and said, well, it looks like we're going to be able to work this, I mean, everybody's excited about that. And I'll tell you something, one thing that we ought to be doing as Americans right now, and I did it yesterday afternoon, but I wrote my representatives yesterday and sent them, actually I sent them a fax yesterday on, the no compromising. Frankly, I don't have a problem with some tax increases. I am not, and I've said this before, I'm not a total sold out supply side economics. I'm more of a Reagan economics kind of guy. I don't have a problem with that. I would take Simpson Bowles. I don't want Simpson Bowles, but I would take Simpson Bowles. But what I don't want, and I think what we're going to get, is we're going to get some increases in taxes with smoke and mirror cuts in the government. And that's what I don't want. That is not going to help the markets. It's certainly not going to help the economy. And I think that's what we're going to get. I think Republicans will adopt the Democratic talking points like they always do. Their cuts are going to be smoke and mirrors. It's not going to be anything else. And that's what's going to happen. I mean, I think that's what we're going to look at, yet we're going to accept these huge tax increases. And has anybody heard the president talk about Social Security? Has anybody heard the president talk about any of the entitlement programs other than Medicare, which he is slashing? Has anybody heard any conversations about that? I would even accept the cuts in the military. I don't like it. I think it's wrong. I don't think we need to do it. But I would even accept that as a compromise with the idea that we can build it back up. But we have got to address entitlements because there is no way on God's green earth that we are going to get out of this issue without some cuts in entitlement programs. We have to restructure Social Security. That's the easiest thing to do, and it's the one thing that I've not heard anybody talk about. We've got to look at all of these entitlement programs. Let's go back to 1950. You want to go back to 1950? Let's go back to 1950. I heard again last night talk about it's all Clinton. Clinton era, Clinton era, Clinton era, Clinton era. Not hearing one Republican talk about, I'm all for it. Let's go back to Clinton. That means the same budget that Clinton had. Do you remember the Pledge to America that it was horrible. I mean, I just tore it apart. When the Republicans in 2010 put out the so-called Pledge to America, that was really an insult and a joke to Americans, is what it was. But, let's talk about real cuts, things that the Pledge to America talked about, which, again, was a joke. But that quickly got forgotten once the 2010 elections were over and nobody's revisited it. Let's go back to Paul Ryan's plan. That's the plan I really like. Let's get to that. But I don't think we're going to see it, folks. And, I think we're going to see, and I'm being very pessimistic here, because the Republicans have not shown me any reason why I shouldn't be.